the person I was staying with said, "Oh, there's somebody we want you to meet." And he's a Polish priest who's been helping. He's been helping with this medical aid to Poland. You know, he's been storing goods or helping in some way. And we'd like you to meet him. So I felt a bit bored at the prospect, actually, you know, but I didn't know who this man was. And I went along to this church, and I was taken up, and as we went up to one floor, and there were guards there, and I thought, this is very odd. And then we went to the next floor, and there were guards there too. And I thought, goodness, what is this? It's positively Stalinist, you know. And I went in, I was taken into this room, and I sat and waited. And all of a sudden, this slight little man came in and sat down opposite me with a face filled with total weariness. He was just exhausted. And he began to talk, and I said, "What's this all about?" You know, and he said, "Oh, I'd had a brick thrown through the window," or whatever it was. And we talked and talked, and I think we discovered we were kindred spirits in some way. At any rate, I know he took to me. And before I left, he had, I think I put quite a few of these things in the book on the crystal spirit. But I don't want to turn around, but in that cupboard behind you, you'll find a plastic Gdansk memorial. And he gave me that. And he gave me a copy of all his sermons, and cassettes of the sermons, and various things which he obviously trusted me. And I don't know whether it was, I saw him again the following week, and he told me he would like me to speak for him. He said people so misunderstood him, and he'd already been arrested, I don't know how many times. And he said, "Will you tell them that I'm an honest man, you know, that I speak the truth and I only care about speaking the truth." And that time, and he was sitting with his dog. He had his arms around his dog, and he was just cuddling, you know, putting his face into the dog, and he gave me some more things. I forget what. And the people that I was staying with got very frightened, and they said, "Please don't take those things to the airport, because we'll have to pay the price if they discover them." So of course I could see that point immediately. So I buried those things under their floorboards. I didn't bring anything home. And a few weeks later, I got a letter from him, and he said, "I'm just going for my 11th interrogation." And he said, "I'm sure they'll put words into my mouth that aren't there, but you will continue to speak." But I was doing it in a very small way, you know, talks to groups and so on. And I was, one Sunday, I happened to go into the room where Nick was watching television, and I heard the words Polish priest, and I instantly knew what had happened. That they had found, I knew he'd got this flat in Warsaw which belonged to his aunt, and they had found in this flat they'd found all this subversive samizdat literature and guns and heaven knows what. So I knew his moment had come, you know, and I was terribly upset. I didn't know what to do about it. And it was within a very short time after that, and the letter that he sent me was wrapped round this copy of the Gdansk Memorial, which I think the shipyard workers had given him, or the miners or someone. And so then I went on holiday. When I came back, the phone went the minute I set my foot inside the door. When I answered it, it was the BBC, and they said, "Will you come in and talk about Jerzy Popiełuszko?" And I said, "Oh, what's he done now?" And of course I'd no idea, and he'd just been found, and I'd missed all that sort of crisis time. And so I went in and did a stint on him. I can't remember what I said now. And I wrote an article for the tablet about him. It's pretty terrible that if the younger generation have forgotten. I think they need to remember, because there are so many lessons to be learned from Polish history. And I think the greatest really was, united we stand, divided we fall, you know, that. And that Solidarity's stance to a large degree was against materialism and for integrity and spirituality. Well, maybe the spirituality is left out of the equation these days, but at least the practical lesson was there, that as long as those groups, those integral groups of Polish society were apart, then they didn't stand a chance against tyranny. But once they came together and discovered that they lacked fear, and I think it was Jacek Kuron and Kor who talked about that, didn't they? That people were no longer afraid. As long as they were afraid, they were powerless. But once they realised that fear had done everything to them it could, then they had power, and that they had power to move mountains, you know. And I suppose John Paul reiterated that message.